Do you walk around like this with your shoulders looking like you're the second coming of the Hunchback of Notre Dame? Well, chances are if you've been dealing with this rounded or kyphotic posture, then at some point you've probably been told that you have tight pecs. And all you gotta do is lengthen them, and through this magical process of lengthening, that will be what resolves your issue. Sound familiar? The reality is that although your pecs probably are bound up due to this shoulder positioning, it's far off the mark for making meaningful changes to this postural position. So in this video, we are going to break down the biggest drivers that are contributing to this rounded shoulder position and go through a step-by-step game plan on how you can resolve this for the long term. Let's get into it. So let's first start with some of the why. Why is it that your shoulders tend to find themselves in this position? And is this inherently a bad thing? Well, let's first start with the positioning of the shoulders and why you might be living in this position on your phone, on your desk, your classic desk posture, and why just stretching your pecs probably isn't going to do a whole lot. If we look at this shoulder positioning, what we can notice is actually what's happening with my upper ribs in the process of that. You can see how my upper ribs actually collapse in on themselves, and that is causing a bias towards internal rotation of my shoulders. Now, if I exist here and I don't have capacity for things like extension, I can do all the pec stretches that I want in the world. I can open it up, but if these ribs aren't moving, then I'm just gonna be creating a ton of mobility around my joint, but I didn't actually change the support network that exists underneath it. So one of the most important concepts that we're gonna be focusing on throughout the course of this video is this idea of getting the shoulder girdle and the tissues around the pecs, the serratus, the lats, supporting the shoulder girdle, and we'll say quote unquote a more neutral position, but around a rib cage that is supporting that shoulder girdle position. Because until we get these upper ribs moving and lifted through some level of extension, we're often gonna find ourselves defaulting back to this. Now, is this position here inherently a bad thing? No, it's not. If you're here, doesn't mean you're broken, you can't do anything overhead or anything with your shoulders and they're just gonna blow up. That's not what that position means, but we do wanna have the capacity to bring ourselves out of that position. And really what we're looking for is the expression of movement with integrity through as much of the spectrum as possible. If I come here and I'm in a great deal of flexion, can I use a baseline of integrity to take myself to the same degree of extension? We're looking at movement as a spectrum, not something that is fixed where we just have to find this position and then never move from. We're constantly kind of flowing between these different states within the spectrum. So now that we got some of the theory out of the way, let's get into the exercises that actually execute on these concepts we just spoke about. So one of the first areas that we want to work on getting some motion that's probably been quite rigid for some time and get used to creating some pressure and some breath and just circulation into is going to be these upper ribs, as spoken about in the prior section of this video. So as we just spoke about the importance of these upper ribs, let's bring some more awareness into them by utilizing aspects of our breath and creating a sense of pressure and spacing with our breathing. Because as mentioned prior, until these ribs get some expression of movement and we have access to that movement, it's going to be very difficult for us to get out of this position and start to find ourselves here. So how we're going to start to open these ribs up is with our breath. So what you'll need for this exercise is nothing more than the chair or the floor that you're potentially sitting on while you're watching this. What you are going to do is come to the edge of your seat. You're going to take your hands slightly behind you. And what I want you to imagine is this point of your elbow in the back. You're trying to project that back, and we're going to be trying to take the shoulder into a little bit more extension. This is where you're probably going to feel potentially some restriction around the pecs, but I want you to imagine you're reaching both elbows back. They are going to be rested on your seat here, but that's how we're going to start to create a little bit of that length. Now, alongside that cue of projecting your elbows backwards, we're going to start to work a breath, just prioritizing this section of your upper ribs. You can feel into the area potentially around your sternum. I even like the cue of breathing almost right in between the collarbones. And what I want you to think is you're getting a lift with the breath, but you're also getting width simultaneously. So what this is going to look like is with my elbows projected behind me, my upper ribs slightly projected forward, not so much where I'm creating any type of compensation through my lumbar, but enough where I'm getting into some extension. We'll go through all those cues internally. We're going to work a 5-second in and a 5-second out, and it's going to look something like this. So we'll take that breath in. There's my expansion. I'm going to try to hold some of that through the 5-second exhale. Now let's build on it. So I'm going to take another inhale. I can feel the pecs really starting to open up. I can exhale, keeping this newfound height. And you can see, and what's really important here is as you exhale, you're not allowing yourself to recollapse back down this way. You're getting used to creating a support network with your breath to hopefully build a sense of what it feels like to have some internal integrity. This idea of creating pressure and height and length with your breath ideally is what we want to start to work towards to become a little bit closer to kind of that default state so that we don't find ourselves collapsing back in here. But what does it feel like to actually be supported in this more extended position? And this way of breathing is a great access point for that. What I'd recommend in terms of time here is work through this for anywhere between about 45 seconds to a minute. You may even get some tingling and numbing coming into your fingers as the nerves are starting to open up. I'd say that's okay to a certain extent. Obviously, just go to your comfort threshold and work that for about 3 sets. So now that we have a better understanding of this idea of extension and bringing some pressure or a felt sense of pressure into these upper ribs, we're going to start to build on that by creating some relative length through muscles like our pecs while we keep some of this extension. So for this, we are going to be working with our form block. If you don't have one, there is a link down in the description below. Cheeky little marketing plug there. If you don't have one, that's totally okay. You can grab a yoga block, a book. You can just hang out at the end range of what we are going to be getting ourselves into here. So you can grab your pad. That's going to be a nice way for us to just soften the knees. We're going to come into a kneeling plank position, more or less. Now, if you are working with your form block, you can start here. If you do not have a form block, then you're going to work at the end range, which we're about to get to in about 5 seconds. So we're going to be starting here. What we're going to do is slowly start to slide out. And then what we're going to do is hang out at this end range position here. I'm kind of on like a 45-degree angle out this way, and I'm keeping an active press through my arm. Now, if you're doing the static version, you're just going to do more or less an isometric here while you start to work that same breath that we were just working on without collapsing through the lower back or excessively rounding out here. Try to find that neutrality of the spine relative to where your arm is. Now, if you have the block, what's nice is I can create this active press down. I can start to slowly pull myself right back in till my elbow gets more or less underneath my shoulder. There is the contraction or the condensing of the tissues. And then I can start to smoothly slide that out and then follow my weight with it. Whether you're using the block or not, really try to explore that end range and just getting a felt sense that you are supported through the shoulders and the upper body. You're regulating yourself with the breath for about a 5-second hold. And then again, if you have the block, we're going to do about a 5-second pull coming all the way back in. Now, it will not take much for that. If you're doing the static version, I'd recommend trying to hold that for about 25 to 30 seconds. Give yourself a break. If you're working with the block, go through anywhere about 3 to 5 reps. It's going to be quite fatiguing. I'm fatigued even from just those couple that I did. But you're really trying to focus on that idea of having integrity while you have both shoulders connected and you're not allowing yourself to collapse through there. Rightio, so we have arrived at the last exercise. You're going to want to grab yourself some dumbbells or anything that you can wedge your feet under. So that could be a couch, anything with some weight, a sandbag. what we are going to be working on is taking the principle of the breath, the integrity through the shoulder girdle. We're going to start to apply that to feeling into even more extension. So you're going to take your feet underneath the tool of your choosing, and I want you to notice where my hips are. I'm not right close. I'm just backed up a little bit. So my knee angle is just slightly greater than 90. Now what we're going to work on is if I am collapsed here, we want to just get a little bit of that felt sense of length with a little bit of extension. So I just want you to kind of feel into kind of lifting your upper ribs forward and upwards simultaneously. Now you might feel in the process of that if you're in this rounded shoulder position, they actually get pulled back. It's pretty cool. So if we can find that, that's great. Doesn't have to be perfect the first time. Get used to exploring and kind of feeling your body as you go through this. It's really what exercise and movement is all about anyway. So we're going to get set up in this position. We're going to start with the hands off if we can. We're going to start to fall backwards. Now as we fall backwards, the tendency here is going to be to create a lot of contraction through your hip flexors, which in turn could cause you to do this. So what I want you to feel into, if you're getting some tension through the legs and hip flexors, perfectly okay. But can I keep my upper ribs lifted in the process of that? We're going to take the arms back to that form block position that we were just in. We're going to do a hold, and then we are going to slowly bring ourselves back to that starting position. We'll take a rest, and then we'll go through that again. So I'm going to start with my elbows off this time. I'm going to fall back. I'm going to be opening up in the process of that. And then we're going to do a hold. We're going to do a full breath cycle, upper ribs lift. Keep them lifted and slowly take yourself back to neutral. What you're starting to practice here is getting some degree of extension, coming back to neutral without wanting to collapse back into that rounded shoulder position. When you're at this end range and you kind of feel that things are active, maybe you're getting a little bit of shakes happening in your body, get used to that feeling, because that's what it feels like to actually have some degree of integrity to support length in your body. Then when you come back to your day-to-day life, that can be what you can kind of feel into as an access point for that. What I'd recommend here in terms of repetitions, we're really trying to focus more on time than reps. We're going to keep the rep count low, anywhere between about 3 to 6 reps. You're going to hang out at that end range for a full breath cycle. That's anywhere between 5 to 10 seconds. Quick reset, and then cycle through that again. So there you have it. Those are the 3 exercises that I would pass along to you if you're dealing with any type of rounded shoulders or kyphotic position. Again, the idea here isn't to put yourself into a headspace where if you're here, all of a sudden your body is going to explode. That's not a good mental psychology to have as it relates to how you relate to your body. So keep in mind, we're always trying to work through the spectrum and have capacity for where we are on that spectrum. As always, if you found this video helpful, do all the YouTube things. You can like, subscribe. I'll leave a link down below for the forum blocks if you're interested in that. That would be the best way to support this channel if you're finding some value in it. And if you're feeling up for it, YouTube thinks that you're going to like this video right here. So go check it out, and I'll see you there.